This year we explored the failure of democracy, how the social scientists brought our world to the brink of chaos. We talked about the veterans, how they took control and imposed the stability that has lasted for generations since. You know these facts, but have I taught you anything of value this year? Why are only citizens allowed to vote?
It's a reward. What the Federation gives you for doing federal service.
No. Something given has no value. Look, when you vote, you are exercising political authority. You're using force. And force, my friends, is violence. The supreme authority from which all other authority is derived.
My mother always said violence never solves anything.
Really? I wonder what the city fathers of Hiroshima would say about that. You.
They probably wouldn't say anything. Hiroshima was destroyed.
Correct. Naked force has resolved more issues throughout history than any other factor. The contrary opinion, that violence never solves anything, is wishful thinking at its worst. People who forget that always pay. Rico, what's the moral difference, if any, between a civilian and a citizen?
A citizen accepts personal responsibility for the safety of the body politic, defending it with his life. A civilian does not.
The exact words of the text. But do you understand it? Do you believe it?
I don't know.
Of course you don't. I doubt anyone here would recognize civic virtue if it reached up and bit you in the ass.
What do we make of this scene? The movie critic paints the scene as a glorification of militarism, as a fascist manifesto. They point to this scene to say that surely this movie is satire because nobody could believe this. No moral person could actually stand by this. Here we are introduced to the first radical idea that in the future, citizenship isn't automatically given to you at birth as it is given today. You have to earn the title of citizen through hard military service. It is only through that you have the right to vote. This is the first major idea, but immediately we have another. That is that the act of voting in elections is an act of using force, and that force, my friends, is violence. And violence is the supreme authority from which all other authority is derived. This idea makes people very uncomfortable. How can voting be a violent act? All you gotta do is go to the voting booth and push some buttons. Even an old lady could do this. But think about this. Let's say you live in a state of California and that people vote to increase taxes to fund some new and amazing welfare program. Let's say you didn't support this program. Well, what could you actually do? What could you actually do? Let's say you don't pay your taxes as a sign of protest. Well, what would actually happen? The IRS would send you a letter with a court date. Let's say you don't answer the letter and you don't show up with the court date. What happens next? Armed men will knock at your door. And if you resist, you're only going to make your situation worse. There is a direct line between the decisions made at the polling booth and the violence at your door. So it is indeed the case that voting in an election is an exercise of force. Ratchek is 100% correct. Taxation does use violence to extract wealth, and this voting system does determine how taxes work. So this is just one example, by the way. If this idea is making you uncomfortable, first off, good, because you should understand the nature of the Leviathan in which we live. Then immediately we are hit with another idea that makes people very uneasy, that violence does settle conflicts. One of the girls says that violence never solved anything, but to this, Ratchik replies, well, tell that to the city fathers of Hiroshima. And in the book, it's slightly different wording. In the book, he says, tell that to the city fathers of Carthage. Carthage was an ancient city flattened by the Romans, and its soil was supposedly salted so that it would never rise again. This is no different than what the US did on Hiroshima. Both cases, violence did settle the issue once and for all. The fourth incendiary point that Ratchik makes is that not only does violence solve conflicts, but the people who forget this truth often have to relearn it the hard way, implying that power to commit violence must be safeguarded and even honored by a nation, or any people really, or risk get destroyed. And the fifth point that Ratchik makes is that Ratchik asks Rico what the moral difference is between a citizen and a civilian. In other words, why is it a citizen can vote but a civilian cannot? This question opens up a can of worms, because in the United States it is believed that all men are created equal, and therefore it follows that, well, all men, and later women, should be given the right to vote. But as Ratchek says, that which is given freely has no value. To put it simply, even if we assume that men are in fact created equal, it does not follow that they should be given equal rights by default. Some rights should be earned. It was Thomas Paine, one of the founding fathers of the United States himself, who said, and I quote, "What we obtain too cheaply, we esteem too lightly. It is sacrifice that gives things their value." Heaven knows how to put a proper price upon its goods, and it would be a strange thing indeed if so celestial an article as freedom should not be valued highly. So this implies that the United States made a grave error by expanding the right to vote for everybody under all conditions at all times, an error, according to Ratchek, that would prove fatal to the body politic, in other words, the United States. So you can sense the danger here. We've gotten all of 2 minutes into the movie, and we have already discussed the rolling back of the right to vote, a very dangerous idea indeed. 60 seconds in the movie and we've already undermined the Constitution of the United States. And we're just scratching the surface. To dig deeper, we must understand and appreciate the story of Starship Troopers. After this class, Rico and Carmen go to check their grades on a massive scoreboard seemingly in the city center. Which, first, think about that. In our society, grades are kept secret, never announced, so that kids don't feel bad. In Starship Troopers, our performance is out there for everybody to see. Which option do you think would encourage you to do better? Transparency, of course. And I would have actually liked this. Well, here we meet Carl, Rico's best friend.
Look at that. 35%?
And Dizzy Flores, a girl who's crushing hard on Rico. So far, the movie is set like a coming-of-age drama, kind of like, again, High School Musical. But, I mean, obviously, it's going to change real quick. So Rico is obviously head over heels over Carmen, but Carmen has eyes for this other guy named Xander, who is going to join the military. And immediately we get another memorable scene.
This came for you today. I presume it's your request.
A lot of my friends are doing federal service.
Well, you're not thinking of applying.
Have you lost your mind? I'd rather take 10 lashes in public square than see you ruin your life.
It's a term of service. It's not a career. I just want to get out on my own. See the galaxy for a couple of years.
Johnny, people get killed in the federal service.
Who gave you this idea? It's that teacher, isn't it? What's his name? You know the one I'm talking about.
Mr. Ratchek.
Radchek? Silly name. There should be a law against using a school as a recruiting station.
No, Ratchek doesn't do that at all. He sort of discourages you.
Well, that's good. Because you're going to Harvard, and that's the end of it.
It's my decision, not yours.
Oh, is that how it is, huh?
Wait, you two. Dad and I have a surprise for you that will settle this. Can you guess what it is?
No.
You wanted to see the galaxy? How about a trip to the outer rings? Zegama Beach, huh?
I've always wanted to go there.
Good. Good. Then it's all settled.
As you can see, Rico's parents are not at all supportive of the military. Rico's father is a multimillionaire, one of the richest men in Buenos Aires, maybe one of the richest men in Argentina. Rico's already set for life, and yet he is thinking of throwing that all away to do something different. Then Rico, Carl, and Dizzy all go to prom. Rico meets Ratchek, the teacher of history and moral philosophy.
Figuring things out for yourself is the only freedom anyone really has. Use that freedom. Make up your own mind, Rico.
The same gentleman who was teaching the class at the starting of this video. Think about this too. Which high school today has a class called History and Moral Philosophy? History class we do have, but moral philosophy we cannot have. We cannot have a moral philosophy class because there is no underlying moral philosophy that we as a society can ascribe to or inspire our children with. We just cannot agree on any moral stance. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let us bring us back to Terra, which is what Earth is called in this universe. Turns out that as Rico was talking to Ratchek, Carmen was schmoozing with Xander, the military guy. And he had a massive status boost because he's wearing his dress uniform. Xander and Carmen were both aspiring to go to flight school to become pilots. Rico was jealous, so he decides that he wants to join the military too. He too wants to be a pilot.
I'm gonna go for federal service.
That's great.
But of course, as luck would have it, he's not qualified to be a pilot and ends up joining the MI, the Mobile Infantry. And as we all know, it is said in jest and with sober reality that God loves the infantry.
So how'd you kids do?
I'm gonna be a pilot.
Good for you. We need all the pilots we can get.
Hey, did you get Starside R&D?
No,
I don't believe it.
I got games in theory.
Games in theory. That's military intelligence.
Way to go, Carl.
Next time we meet, I'll probably have to salute you. How about you, son?
Infantry, sir.
Good for you. Mobile infantry made me the man I am today.
Think about this scene. Why would the military have a quadriplegic at the front desk of their recruiting station? It surely would scare away many recruits. Now compare that with the way recruitment works in the US military today. Now this is just a quick thing which I want you to notice. When Rico, Carmen and Carl are joining up, there is no war with the bugs. So they think they're just going to do a quick 2 years of service and then get out. This will be important later when we discuss the metaphysics of war. And so it is that we come to the second act of the movie, boot camp.
Anytime you think I'm being unfair, anytime you miss your mommy, quit! You son from 1248, you grab your gear, you take a stroll down Washout Lane. Do you get me? Sir, yes, sir. Pathetic.
Turns out that Dizzy has requested to be transferred to the unit. Rico hates this because, well, he's done all this to get away and has tried to do a hard reset on his life, but here comes Dizzy, a relic of his past. And at the same time, Carmen runs into Xander at flight school, and within a few weeks, Rico gets the classic Dear John letter from Carmen.
Write me so that I know we'll always be friends.
Now, this is a thing which happens all the time in actual real army infantry training. Like every couple weeks, or actually every week, some random kid would get a Dear John letter at mail call. And so we come to the next pivotal movement in the movie. The boys are doing a live fire exercise, which Rico is leading. Everybody's stressed, and in that stressful moment, there's a trainee who can't get his helmet on right. So Rico tells him to take it off for the duration of the live fire exercise, but in so doing, he gets killed. And for Rico's blunder, Rico is given administrative punishment.
Administrative punishment. 10 lashes.
And if you're curious, yes, we absolutely do have live fire exercises in real life with live ammo in the US Army. But the way we do it is different from what you see in the movie. Like, as you're using live ammo in your live fire exercise, there's always going to be a safety right behind you, like literally standing right behind you. And he's going to ensure one thing, which is when you're moving with your rifle, when you're moving, your safety is always on safe. And only when the target pops up, then you flick it to fire, and then you fire, you engage the target, and immediately put it back on safe. I'm actually doing the gesture is completely wrong. You do this for fire, either way. So when you're actually walking, you would absolutely not have... Yeah, good morning, boys and girls in Hawaii. Got chickens and pigeons. Where was I? Yeah, live fire exercises. So you'll have a safety who's always ensuring that your safety is on as you're walking, so that if you drop your weapon, which first off, like, that's a bad day, but if you drop your weapon, it still would not go off, and the risk is mitigated by having a safety right behind you. By the way, coming back to the movie, right? Obviously, the movie does not do live fire exercises in the way that an actual military would do, and so somebody gets killed. But coming back to Terra, after Rico gets his lashes, Rico begins packing his stuff to leave. He feels guilty, and he feels like he doesn't have what it takes to lead somebody or even be in the MI. MI referring to mobile infantry. He joined for all the wrong reasons, right? He joined because, well, he had a spat with his dad. He joined because this chick, Carmen, she was joining the military, so he felt like he wanted to join the military. And oftentimes people absolutely, like, a lot of guys will join the military for the wrong reasons, and Rico was no exception. So he just thought to himself, well, he's here for the wrong reasons anyway, so he might as well quit. But then he has this call with his parents.
Johnny?
Dad?
Where's your uniform?
Bill?
It's just good to hear from you. How are you, son?
It's not really working out here for me, Dad. I was hoping it would be all right if I came home.
Of course, you should come home immediately.
I'm sorry. I've been an idiot.
Now, don't talk like that. You just come on home. Talk things out. We love you, son.
Oh my, what's that?
It's like rain.
This time of year?
Sure is dark.
What Rico didn't know was that the darkness in Buenos Aires was cast by an asteroid attack by the bugs. They were going to war. Rico had already signed his request to drop out, and then we get this very important and I think very human scene.
I wish to reconsider my request to drop out, sir.
You already signed your 1248, son. It wouldn't be legal.
Major, I know it was wrong. I didn't learn from one mistake and I made another, sir.
You made your decision, son.
Sir, my family, my whole family was in Buenos Aires, sir.
Is this your signature, Rico?
Sir, yes it is, sir.
Doesn't look like it to me. Carry on, Private.
Yes, sir.
And so the fleet is mobilized and on its way to Calendatu to cleanse some bugs.
Let me tell you something. I'm from Buenos Aires, and I say kill them all! Yeah! Okay!
But sadly for the MI, they wildly underestimated the war-making capacity of the bugs. So when they landed on Calendatu, they got wiped, they got slaughtered. But here's the thing. Instead of pointing fingers at anybody, the general of the fleets, or the military, whatever the Terran Federation is calling its military, accepts personal responsibility for the disaster in public and even publishes the number of dead to the public. So he steps down and is replaced immediately. In the book, this scene is actually even better. The general doesn't step down after this debacle. He actually dies in the line of duty. In the Starship universe, everybody fights, nobody quits. So the general who commanded the attack on Calendatu was in Calendatu. He was on the battlefield, like he was with the boys. And he died fighting a rear guard action to save as many troops as he could. But if you look at the generals of today, now I have to guard my words. Many generals, like probably the majority of them, are solid men. But there are a certain number of them who are political appointees. Would these political appointee generals be willing to fight and die in the trenches with the boys? Open question. I hope we never have to find out. And okay. Coming back to Terra. Rico, Dizzy, and Ace. So Ace is a new friend that Rico made in boot camp. They survive the disaster and get reassigned to a new unit because their old unit was decimated and disbanded. And they meet their lieutenant. Their lieutenant is somebody who we know. The high school teacher of history and moral philosophy, the one and only Mr. Ratchek, has come back from retirement as a fighting officer, Lieutenant Ratchek. Under the command of Ratchek, Ratchek's Roughnecks becomes a elite formation. They move into a small bug planet on a special mission whose purpose even they don't know. Here, Rico proves himself to be a great warrior. In his movement of Aristea, he takes on a tanker bug solo by shooting a hole in its carapace and dropping a grenade in it and blowing it up. And for his valor and his competence, he gets promoted to a corporal.
I need a corporal. You're it until you're dead, or till I find somebody better.
So, that night, the Roughnecks celebrate their triumph.
Here's the beer.
On this day, Rico has achieved the ultimate glory. He has fought and killed his enemies. His new unit has accepted him as one of their own, and his commanding officer has elevated him from a private, basically, to the rank of a non-commissioned officer. A corporal is a non-commissioned officer. And finally, he gets over Carmen, his high school girlfriend, and, well, under the sage advice of Lieutenant Ratchek, he takes Daisy Flores. He has a crew now. So Rico lost his initial friend circle of Carmen and Carl, right? But he found a new one in the form of Ace and Dizzy. The platoon receives a distress call that night, and the Roughnecks make ready for war as they patrol towards the source. They discover strange things in this outpost. It turns out that the distress call was a trap. the bugs had intentionally allowed the distress call to get out to lure in more humans to be slaughtered. Soon the entire platoon is surrounded. The bugs are rapidly gaining the numerical advantage, and the platoon has no chance of survival. They're just absolutely surrounded. And Lieutenant Ratchik is killed in the struggle. But rescued by whom? Turns out that it was Xander and Carmen. They were sent because they were actually the best flight team. They were actually talented and well practiced, and they actually volunteered for the mission as well. They actually volunteered to go into complete hostile territory, risk everything to save a platoon. At this point, Carmen doesn't know, and Xander doesn't know that Rico is there. So as far as they knew, they were just taking on this incredible risk to go and save a random platoon. So we come to the funeral services after this engagement was completed. So at this point, Rico has gone from being a private to a corporal, and Carmen, she was an officer already because she was going to flight school, right? So she had achieved the rank of major. But Carl outranked both of them by a lot. He was a full bird colonel, which is just one step away from being a general. So Carl tells the Roughnecks what they were really doing on that planet. The Roughnecks were there as bait. The Federation was looking for this hypothesis. They hypothesized that the bugs were intelligent. They were not just a bunch of bugs. They were coordinating, and they hypothesized there was going to be a brain bug, kind of a brain nerve center, who would give directions to all these bug units, basically. So they hypothesized that there was a brain bug on this planet, and basically Carl had laid a trap. He sent the Roughnecks to this planet to see if the bugs would display any kind of intelligence. And he saw how the bugs laid a trap for the Roughnecks. So he was like, well, that means there's probably a brain bug on this planet. And so the mission changes. Now, the entire Terran Federation military has one job, and that is to attack this planet and capture the brain bug alive for research and development purposes. So at this point, Carl officially commissions Rico. So a commission is like, so Rico was a non-com. He was a non-commissioned officer. That's basically all your sergeants and corporals, all the way up to like master sergeant. And to get a commission means that you become a lieutenant, and then you have a different career path. You can go from lieutenant to eventually captain, major, colonel, and general. So it's just like a different career path, different responsibilities. Both are leadership, but just different. So either way, Rico has been commissioned, he has been upgraded, he has been given more responsibility. He's gone from being a private to a lieutenant of a unit in like all of a month. So that's really cool. So either way, coming back to Terra. So we've gone to see the entire journey of Rico. He's gone from being a high school jock kid who joined the military because he wanted to impress this chick, to becoming a squad leader, to becoming a corporal, to becoming acting platoon sergeant, and eventually to lieutenant, which is platoon leader. So he's now the one haranguing the unit. He's the one who's battle tested and hardened. He's the warrior in charge of fresh new recruits. He's no longer a boy. He's a man. He's lost his parents. He has lost his mentor in the form of Ratchik. He's lost friends he has trained with, right? His boot camp / army training buddies, many of them are dead. His valor is known, and his unit looks up to him. He's more than a man. He's at this point a leader. It's no longer Ratchik's Roughnecks. It is
Rico's Roughnecks!
And this has been Rico's hero's journey. But Rico is a fictional character, right? So how can we as flesh and blood human beings hope to learn from somebody who just never existed? Well, you don't have to. Let's look at the author Robert Heinlein. He literally pioneered the subgenre of hard science fiction. Hard science fiction is just science fiction which takes a realistic lens to look at the world. Either it's realistic in terms of politics or the actual science. Like The Martian, right? The Martian is a classic example of hard science fiction because it does try to stay true to the underlying physics. Something like Warhammer 40k is not considered hard science fiction because you have magic, you have the warp, and you have completely like non-scientific concepts. So if you look at Robert Heinlein, he literally pioneered that subgenre of hard science fiction, and let's learn about him. He lied about his age to join the army as a 16-year-old. He was so good that he received 50 letters of recommendation to be accepted into the Naval Academy. So yes, he left the army. Yes, he joined the Navy. Okay, fine. But he had an amazing and successful career in the Navy, but then he got tuberculosis. So he was discharged. His entire dream career that he had worked decades for was destroyed because of something that he couldn't really control. He was stuck in a hospital bed close to death, and he did recover, but he found that he had no money, and he was discharged from the Navy, so he couldn't even go back. And his Navy pension barely covered the bills. Many men in a similar position would have taken the L. They would have accepted defeat. They would have lived out a meager existence, telling themselves that their fate was to suffer. But not Robert Heinlein. Heinlein took a bet on himself and followed his dream. He started writing. He was consistent and he was strategic. He positioned himself not as another science fiction writer, but as the only writer who can combine politics, science fiction, and realism, like actual hardcore techno-realism, being true to the technology. And in few years, he became a famous writer. He won multiple awards, including the Hugo, which is a very prestigious award for fiction writers. I'm telling you, I'm sharing to you the story of Robert Heinlein to serve as a model for your own actions. This video is not meant to entertain you. None of my videos really are meant to entertain you. I hope they are entertaining, but they're meant to educate you. Education and entertainment, the difference is that education, you change your behaviors. So I want you to take some of these inspiring stories and allow this to modify your behavior. We're getting close to the end of the year now, boys. At the time of recording, we have all of 3 months left. It's October, whatever. And actually, we only have 2 more months left, November and December, right? With this in mind, I'm going to do a free goal-setting workshop. I will guide you through the exact step-by-step process that I use that will bring you mental clarity. If you go to the pinned comment below, you will see a link, an invite. You can use that to add this event, this free goal-setting session to your calendar so you don't miss it. I will teach you what I have learned over many years now. And this will also add you to the newsletter, which will keep you informed of future live events, of which I hope to do more. And don't worry, this newsletter is not like a marketing tactic. I never use AI. This is actually high quality writing. And if you're already part of my newsletter, you know that I'm speaking the truth. So if you like this video so far, that means that you already like the way I see the world in some way. Otherwise, you wouldn't be like, you are already like 30 minutes into the videos or whatever, right? So that means you like the way I think, which means that you're going to like my written materials even more than me just speaking. So join the newsletter, appear for the live goal setting session. I'll see you there. Let's make the best of this year. We have 2 months left, but 2 months is a lot of time. You can absolutely reverse the course of the year. Make this year one of the best years of your life in 2 months. So I'll see you there. Now, coming back again to Terra. The Roughnecks have a clear mission to find the brain bug, and the Roughnecks are scouting ahead. The Void War, the space war, not going so well. The Void craft, the spaceship that Carmen and Xander were in, gets blown up, and Carmen and Xander, they escape in a drop pod, in an escape pod, really, yeah, it is an escape pod. So, but unfortunately for them, their pod crash lands into the soil of that planet and burrows deep in to the point at which it's inside a bug tunnel, and they're captured alive by the bugs. But before they get captured, they are able to transmit a radio distress signal, which Rico and his platoon are able to intercept, and they know their location, at least the rough location. And so it is that Carmen and Xander are captured, and Rico is going to save them. At least he's beginning to save them. And it is under these circumstances that we see this incredible scene. Until now, Xander is made out to be a dick who just wants to steal Carmen away from our hero, Rico. But so he's seen as kind of the bad guy in this romance, right? But it turns out that he's so much more. He hands Carmen his blade and voluntarily accepts his cruel fate and torture by the bugs, just to give Carmen a chance to fight back. Now, so he's not a high school jock bad guy, he's actually a hero. Rico and the Roughnecks are able to save Carmen, but of course Xander is gone by that point, and they're able to get a read on the brain bug, though of course a lot of them die in this process. And then we get to this glorious scene.
What's it thinking, Colonel?
It's afraid. It's afraid!
And so we come to the end. Mankind has captured one of the brain bugs, and this gives them a massive advantage in the war. And the war continues, but the movie ends. Or does it? As I've said, this movie is based on the book of the same name by Robert Heinlein. But is it? Turns out the book and the book and the movie are actually completely different things. Like, the plot is not the same at all. The universe is the same, but the plot is completely different. There's Johnny Rico as a character, same in both. The bug war, like the bugs as a faction, same in both. But the substance of the book and the substance of the movie are different. But they also converge. And this is where we get into the philosophy/metaphysics. And really, if you watch this far into the video, this is where the value is. I just have to give you the plot, otherwise, like what I'm going to share with you right now, it wouldn't have context. So is this satire? We introduced the idea that this might be satire at the starting of this video. So Robert Heinlein did absolutely not write a satire. He did not intend this to be a satire in any way. He was using fiction to explore his idea. Paul Verhoeven, the director of the movie, was in fact trying to create a satire. But the thing is, he didn't even read the original work. He read crazy. Like, imagine you're a director and you're trying to make a movie, and you're trying to make a movie based on the book, and you don't even read the book. That's actually what happened. Paul Verhoeven said that the book was too boring for him to read, which it is not. Like, this book is amazing, especially if you're a young man. Like, you're gonna love this book. De-emphasize the young. If you're a man, you'll enjoy this book, regardless of age. Women don't like this book, and I don't know if this, I don't even know if this is a controversial point, but some books are just better for women, some books are just better for men. And for example, Wuthering Heights, or what do you call it, Little Women, or something like that. Like, there's chick novels which men really don't get much value from, and then there's books like Starship Troopers, which women don't really gravitate to. It's not better or worse, it's just different, right? Anyway, coming back to Starship Troopers, the movie, directed by Paul Verhoeven, and the thing is, the screenplay, like the actual plot, was not written by him. It's written by Edward Neumeier, who also is the screenwriter for RoboCop. So in all his interviews, when people ask him about the movie, Paul Verhoeven will say, well, this movie was a satire, and it was specifically made to show fascism in a bad light, and that war and militarism was bad.
I can tell you that the movie is, in fact, in our opinion, stating that war makes fascists of us all. And of course, there is also clearly a disguised statement about propaganda films of the Third Reich. In fact, it is saying, of course, that this fascist propaganda that is kind of apparent in the movie should be really read, at least that's how we meant it, should be read as something that is not good. So whenever you see something that you think is fascist, you should know that the makers coincide with your opinion, thinking that it is not good. That is not a good statement, and this is not good politics. And if you see a black uniform, you should also know bad, bad, bad. Anyhow, we're back into the movie here, I think, and we'll leave the politics for some time. We can leave that alone.
Although this is the biggest political statement in the film.
Right, okay, let's forget about it. You go ahead here.
Well, this is just showing how the society is completely sort of oriented towards its political stuff, and they teach it in the schools, and it's actually kind of a society that works pretty well. There's no sexism, there's no racism. Later we will see that there's very little crime. In fact, they seem to have achieved the ideal sort of politically correct society, except that we sort of question how they've achieved it. They have achieved it.
Yeah, because the most important political statement that is in this scene is Redzak saying, more or less at the point where we are now, where he says that violence is the supreme authority that solves everything, which is of course questioned by Dizzy, but then of course not accepted by him. You could of course say that this kind of statements are not so much going back to the Third Reich, I would say. There are much more statements about American politics. I mean, the whole movie is about the United States. All statements are about the United States.
But the thing is, the movie is not about fascism at all. It's about limited government, which is quite literally the opposite of fascism. So let's use this time to understand what the hell fascism actually is. You can't be for or against something if you don't understand what it is. So what the hell is fascism? So a fascist state tries to be inclusive as possible. It tries to include all the citizens, everybody from young to old, male, female, doesn't matter, everybody into itself. That is what the word fascism even means. Most people don't even know what the word fascism means, and they just throw it around like on media and everything. So where does the word come from? So the word fascism comes from fascio, which is the Latin word for a bundle of sticks. So you know that idea or maybe story that a single stick is easy to break, but if you put a bunch of sticks together into a bundle, now you can break it. Can break it. So that's what fascism means. It means that society should stick together. So all the individuals of the society should stick together, and therefore they cannot be broken. That's what fascism means. Basically, it's a collectivist mode of societal organization. You might have heard the word fascia, right? Like myofascial release, like fascia as it refers to muscle fibers. That's what it is. The muscle fibers are as strands. Each strand can be easily torn, but once you put the muscle fibers into a muscle bundle, now it's a fascia. Now you can break it. And same root word from Latin. Many of our words in the English language, of course, come from Latin. Now we must talk about the downside of fascism. So fascism does have some strengths. It absolutely does, and we should not neglect this. But it has, of course, many downsides. The biggest downside is that if you wanted to have your own independent thoughts, you will be forced to merge with the collective against your will. If you were living in Nazi Germany, you'd have to be a part of the party in some capacity. If you lived in communist China, you were forced to attend party events, and if you didn't, then you would just mysteriously disappear. And same for fascist Italy and basically any other fascist regime, right? You have to put your interests second to the state. That's just the definition. Now, so fascism sacrifices individual freedoms for the collective might, but this is just not what happens in Starship Troopers. It's like, whether you like fascism or not, like that is just not what happens in Starship Troopers. It's literally the opposite. The government is as exclusive as possible. In fascism, governments are as inclusive as possible. You have to be a part of the government, whether you like it or not. In Starship Troopers, you have to struggle to be a part of the government. The opposite, right? The actual polar opposite. So in Starship Troopers, the government is exclusive, granting the voting rights to only those few who make the grade, who actually serve in the military. So it's like Paul Verhoeven was trying so hard to steer away from the book that he did 2 left turns and kind of came back to the book, because the book's point is, in fact, that fascism is bad and limited government is good. So Paul Verhoeven, without even knowing it, kind of circled back and made the same point. But he himself didn't understand the point that he made, and he thinks that the book is anti-fascist, though it actually has nothing to do with fascism. It's pro-limited government, different topics. And in any case, to be clear, fascism is internally weak because the analogy doesn't hold. So to say that humans are like a bundle of sticks and we should come together and we'll be stronger together, the analogy doesn't hold, because sticks in a bundle do not have their own will to power. It is the case that if you take a bunch of sticks and put them together, it's harder to break. But it has nothing to do with how humans behave. So let me explain a little bit more. Humans in a society do have a will to power, and fascism has to stomp this out by force and subvert or reuse that will to power of the individual to serve the collective. And the second claim is that the Terran Federation is pro-war and that the bugs were innocent. But this is not true. Now, they show in the starting of the movie that the Mormons, yes, they have space Mormons in this movie, they venture into bug territory. But this was clearly against the advice of the Terran Federation. And besides, a small incursion is no justification for the absolute nuclear annihilation of an entire city. The bugs gave mankind no chance to negotiate or come to an understanding. They declared total war, and mankind responded in kind. So that's justified. Others say that Rico fights because he's brainwashed by the government. But he wasn't. He fights because he saw his parents get flattened by the bugs by a meteor strike. The reason why so many online critics, film critic types, I don't want to be political on this channel necessarily, but let's call it for what it is. People who lean left, especially like film critics and such, they really, really hate this movie, and they just don't get it. They don't get it because of I think, the character of Rico is so heroic, unapologetically heroic. Let me explain. Rico is objectively good and pure. He risks his life for others and for mankind as a whole. Not just this, but he's also very competent. He's an excellent soldier and a wonderful, amazing leader. On top of this, he's also handsome and gets multiple girls. Rico's friends too are heroic. Carl, the general, right? he does absolutely send millions of men to die, but he does this from a sense of duty, not out of a sense of pleasure, and he does this for the survival of mankind. Carmen and Xander both risk their lives to save random foot soldiers in a volunteer-only mission. Xander then sacrifices his life to give Carmen a fighting chance. So each and every main character in this movie has shown heroism and sacrifice without flaw as such. And so the leftist sees this and can't help but say, well, this is unrealistic. This is propaganda. Well, yes, there's no perfect human beings, but heroism does exist, sacrifice does exist, and you just have to open the books of history and see example after example of men and women dying for their cause. The thing is, the modern man or woman doesn't have any place for true self-sacrifice. Their belief holds that everybody must be acting in their own self-interest and that no true heroes can exist. That is why again, not to be political, but the left, they constantly subvert the fictional heroes into being anti-heroes or incompetent. And we can see this in the Star Wars universe, as you know. They don't believe in heroism because they themselves are purely self-serving. So Verhoeven mistook militarism for fascism and just having a military for militarism. So when Verhoeven says that the movie is satire, it isn't. He was wanting to create a satire, but he failed in that task. And he just made an amazing, straightforward, traditional hero's journey without realizing it. And that's how we get this accidental masterpiece. So, is this fascism? Now, looking at the book and asking the question, is it fascist? Well, let's look. In the legendary history and moral philosophy class, Mr. Ratchek says humans do not have any natural rights of any kind. This idea that humans don't have rights. Now, that's obviously a very polarizing topic, and some people would say that that's a fascist idea. But let's unpack this. Like, why does Ratchek say that humans don't have any rights? Let's understand what he means by this. And of course, Ratchek is fictional, right? We're really understanding Heinlein through this. And coming back to this classroom, so Ratchek says humans don't have any rights, and as you'd expect, somebody pipes up and says, well, what about the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? The words from the American Declaration of Independence. And what Heinlein says to this is basically, I'm going to paraphrase. Heinlein's writing is very elaborate and beautiful and allegorical as it comes to Ratchek, but the point is basically this. He says, does anybody actually have the right to life? Like, let's imagine a guy he's fallen off a boat and he's drowning in the Pacific. He's drowning and the waters are going to swallow him up. Can he say, no, ocean, I have the right to life. You can't drown me, water. I have the right to life. Like, no, of course not. You can die. Like, there's no right to life. You can die right now. You might just slip on a banana peel and fucking die Looney Tunes style. And then you cannot say, no, I can't die. I have the right to life. No, you don't. You don't have the right to life. You can die right now. And then imagine another scenario. Let's say you are with your children and you're being attacked by a bear. And your children are not going to get away unless you put yourself in front of the bear. Now, you have a right to life. But do you have the right to life? Or should you essentially sacrifice yourself to give your kids a chance? Or should you say, no, I can't, I'm not going to sacrifice my life for these kids. I'm going to run and let the bear get the kids because I have the right to life. No, you don't have the right to life. You will voluntarily, like if you're an actual man or woman, like if you're an actual human being, you will sacrifice yourself for your kids and thereby negate any concept of right to life. So all this to say, there is no right to life. You cannot have a right to life. It doesn't make any sense. It's a stupid concept. And it's okay, to be clear, I'm not saying the founding fathers were stupid to use this concept. It's more so that the founding fathers completely understood what they were doing. They had a country to found. And a country must be founded on fictions. All organizations are founded on some foundational fictions. And so they came up with what they came up with. That doesn't mean that it's true. Okay? Now we will delve into that a little bit deeper later in this video, but let's just move on to fresh turf. The second supposed right is the right to liberty. So it's life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? So let's talk about liberty. Does anybody have the right to liberty? Well, the American founding fathers themselves did not have a right to liberty. They fought for liberty, didn't they? They bled for liberty. They exercised their will to power against the British. That's basically what the founding fathers did. And liberty, therefore, is not a right. They didn't They didn't go to the British and say, we have a right to liberty, guys. You have to let us be free. No, they fucking bled, and they bled the British badly for that supposed right. It wasn't a right. It was a state of being. In this book, Heinlein quotes, I believe, Jefferson when he says, liberty, the tree of liberty must be watered regularly with the blood of patriots, or otherwise it withers. All this to say that these aren't rights. These are renewable things. Like if you don't renew these things, then they perish. And then let's talk about the pursuit of happiness. Is that a right? It's a state of mind. Like theoretically, you can be in a prison and you could be meditating and journaling and whatnot, and you could theoretically have an amazing state of mind and you could pursue happiness. At the same time, you could be the richest man on earth and you could have the most amazing business and the most amazing wife and still be miserable. So what do you mean by having a right to pursue happiness? It doesn't make sense. It's not a right. The pursuit of happiness is a universal condition. And we can actually go one step further. And in this next thought experiment, I'm going to go very far. I'm going to exceed the mandate given to me by Heinlein. And this is going to be a crazy thought experiment, boys. This will actually change your mind on certain things. All right, so let's get into it, right? Let's take the 19th Amendment. The 19th Amendment is the legal doctrine that gives women the right to vote. Now, to be clear, this is about understanding what the hell a right to vote even means, to understand what a right even is. So the majority of Americans, all ages, all genders, all races, all socioeconomic status, whatever, will agree that women should have the right to vote. Got it. Check. All right. Understood. But that in itself doesn't mean much. Let me explain. Let's say this is a hypothetical small town. Let's just place it in... let's drop this hypothetical small town in Kentucky. So small town Kentucky, like nobody really cares, and they have a polling booth, and women are lining up to vote, and it's like business as usual. But then 5 thugs step up. They have like maces, let's say. They have like big ass war hammers, and they're standing in front of the voting booth, and they're like, "We don't think women should vote." Now, what happens? Now, women could certainly say that they have the right to vote, but they are barred from exercising their right by these men who they cannot fight by themselves. Okay? Hear me out. Like, this is going to be an interesting thought experiment. So you have the poll booth in the center. Okay? You have the poll booth in the center, and you have the women who are trying to line up and try to vote, and you have these 5 like armed thugs who are saying no. Like, we will not allow any women to pass. Okay. So what do women do? They call the police. Obviously. Call the police. Like, hey police, there's these 5 thugs, they're preventing me from voting, come and stop them. So the police pull up, they have pistols, they have whatever the police have. But somehow, the police start to talk to these 5 thugs, and they start to agree. And suddenly, along with the 5 thugs, you have 5 police officers who are also standing and barring the way to these women. We're like, okay, so the women had the right to vote, and they still have the right to vote by the paper, by the words on paper. But now they're being stopped by police as well as the 5 thugs. So what do they do now? The women are like, well, governor's office, well, your police officers and these thugs are preventing me from voting. What are you going to do about it? And the governor's like, okay, I'm gonna organize the National Guard, Kentucky National Guard. Kentucky National Guard, go and move these policemen and these thugs out of the way so that these women can go and have their right to vote. Kentucky National Guard pulls up, and they see these policemen, they see these thugs, they're like, what's this about? And they eventually get convinced as well. Now, the National Guard has M4s, they have tanks. Well, I don't know if they have tanks anymore, but whatever. They have military-grade equipment. Now, the National Guard joins the initial 5 thugs and the policemen. What does the women do now? Now their way is barred even more. So it's like, hey, President, your Kentucky governor is acting up, like the Kentucky National Guard is going rogue, you need to send federal troops. Federal troops roll up, and they have, Raptors, they have, dude, I don't even know what the feds have, but like all the crazy tech, right? But let's say the federal troops themselves are convinced of this argument, and they too join the side. Now suddenly there's battleships and main battle tanks and javelins and whatnot, preventing these women from exercising their right to vote. So at this point, would you say that women have the right to vote? Functionally, no. So words on paper mean nothing. That's my point. Like, that's my point right here, right? My point here is basically this, that words on paper mean nothing. The thoughts and actions that govern what the men with guns do, That is what matters. Beyond anything, it is the men with the guns. What do they believe? What will they die for? That is the one thing that matters. Not everything else is dust. Everything else is whatever, right? Whew. Powerful thought experiment, wouldn't you say? So all your voting, all your bullshit, like all the structures of society, like all these rules and laws, they can all be torn away in 30 days by an armed force. So what is Heinlein talking about? And what am I talking about with this experiment? I'm basically being a realist. I'm not an idealist. I don't care about all these ideas. Like, I care about what's real in front of my face, basically. What's real and what's true. Truth is power. There's no point in relying on fictions, as far as I can tell, right? So that's what Heinlein is. Heinlein is not a fascist. Heinlein is not a fascist. He is just a realist. And sometimes the reality isn't pretty. Coming back to the movie and coming back to the book. Another claim that the left makes is that the movie glorifies the military over the civilian, but in universe that's actually not true. The Terran Federation is actually not trying to recruit you at all. If anything, it's trying to dissuade you from joining. In the movie, the guy at the front desk is missing an arm and a leg. Why? It's to scare away people. This literally shows that citizenship costs an arm and a leg. In contrast, the United States Army offers a $20,000 bonus to enlist. Think about the difference, right? The actual real-life army tries to basically bribe you into joining, whereas the Terran Federation Army actively dissuades you from joining. Which one is more militaristic? Like, come on now. Now, to be clear, if you're like, oh, $20,000, that sounds pretty good, I should join the army. It's not actually $20,000. Like, they will dude, the stupidest thing. The US military will give you a bonus to enlist, but once you enlist, that bonus is taxed. So you don't get the whole bonus. Like, you get 3/4 of it. It's beyond stupid, but that's the reality that we live in. But anyway, coming back to Terra, coming back to the Federation, coming back to the material of the book. So you tell me which military is being more transparent. In the book, they actually go one step further. In the book, you have a 48-hour cooldown period where you can rip up your contract and your enlistment oath and just go back to being a civilian. The only cost would be that you can never join the military again. In fact, it's even better. So in the Terran Federation boot camp, you're actually allowed and in fact encouraged to quit at any time and for any reason. Now, can you do that in a fascist military? No. You can't. Hell, even in the U.S. military, you can't just walk out the door. Like, if you're in basic training, you cannot just walk out. Like, it takes a lot of effort. I've seen it done, but you have to take a lot of effort if you're trying to leave. So, all this to say, like, there's nothing about this book or the source material or even the movie which says that the Terran Federation is a fascist government. People who say that have no idea what the hell they're talking about. They don't understand fascism at all. And in fact, coming back to the book, right? Most civilians in the book and the movie think that citizenship isn't worth the hassle. There's a doctor in the book who says citizenship is for ants and for only stupid people who want to take the risk. Rico's father in the movie talks down on citizenship. He says the Federation is a parasitic organism. He sees business and enterprise as the more prestigious option. On top of this, civilians have the same privileges as citizens do, except for the right to vote. So in this universe, it's not like citizens are necessarily having better opportunities than civilians. It's that they, like, for example, Rico's father, right? Rico's father is a civilian, but he's not a lower class. He's not a second-class citizen. He's a multi-millionaire. And in fact, he considers his life and his lifestyle to be more elite than the dirty and filthy life of a soldier. So civilians aren't like a oppressed class or beaten down. Quite the opposite. They have freedom of speech, they have movement, association, freedom to organize. Rico's father literally called citizens parasites. So it's quite literally the opposite of fascism. I don't know what to say. It's just not fascism. In the Terran Federation, service guarantees citizenship. In totalitarian states and in fascist governments, citizenship guarantees service. So it's, again, I trying to beat this point to death. Terran Federation, not fascist. It is limited government. And limited government is literally the polar opposite of fascism. I already said it, but I'll say it one more time. Anyway, the real reasons why leftists think that the book is fascist is because of the moral conviction with which the book is written. It is written in the style of Hitler or Mussolini. Like, if you read the book, like, it is written with belief. Heinlein really, in his core, believes that limited government is a good thing. he believes in that, and he writes with flair, he writes with conviction, he writes with power, that he loves and wants to see limited government. The thing is, when somebody has a courage of conviction like this, people think, he's convinced of his views, he must be fascist. That's not true. You can be convinced and believe in views other than fascism. Like, I shouldn't have to say this, but this is the case. Let's read this passage together. The noblest fate that a man can endure is to place his mortal body between his loved home and the desolation of war. That sounds fascist to the left. The characters in this book, who are of course spokesmen for Heinlein's own beliefs, are certain that they are right about their moral stance. The left doesn't like this kind of moral certainty because for them, morality is relative. One of the key indicators of a totalitarian state is that the media is controlled. In Soviet Russia or Nazi-controlled Germany, they never saw, like the people who lived in those countries never saw the truth of what's going on. Like Nazi Germany or Soviet Russia never showed casualty numbers in war. They fed you content about the greatness of the nation and how things were just about to get better. But in Starship Troopers, they straight up live streamed the Battle of Klandatu. Whoa! Caught it. They show the disaster as it unfolds. Rico is actually a part of the footage.
Get out of here now!
The cameraman literally gets stabbed by the bug on camera. How is this propaganda? Like, think about what does propaganda do? Propaganda dresses up the harsh realities of war by making it sound like heroic and amazing. But in Starship Troopers, it's quite the opposite. They literally show the dark truth of war. They literally show people getting blown up. This is a level of media transparency that you'll never see in real life. So if somebody sees this live stream and still joins the military, they're not being brainwashed. Quite the opposite. They know exactly what they're getting into. Right after this, the general who ordered the attack is removed and replaced. Now, did Hitler get replaced after Dunkirk or Stalingrad? No! And of course, which US generals got replaced after what happened in Afghanistan? I don't want to get into that. Either way, I'm just saying, like, even in our democracy, generals are not always held to account. But in the Terran Federations, they are. So anyway, Terran Federation, not fascist. Those who claim it don't understand fascism, don't understand limited government. Like, if you don't understand fascism, you certainly don't understand limited government. So forget about it. Limited government is the peak. So anyway, so now the question is this book, is the movie pro-violence? In the book as well as the movie, we have a long sequence before the war to see how the MI, the mobile infantry, is trained. Like the boot camp sequence, basically. And a lot of people see this as fascistic military obsession. Drill Sergeant Zim is often seen as an abuser who uses his power to inflict harm on recruits. This is nonsense.
Medic!
So I went to Army basic training many years ago, and the Army infantry school as well. And I earned the blue cord, earned the cross rifles, whatever. So I know firsthand, like, how the training looks like. And I wish we had more drill sergeants like Sergeant Zim. I wish we had more Sergeant Zims. And the thing is, Sergeant Zim is not a sadist. He is a firm and fair leader. He puts his recruits through the ringer, right? He puts the recruits through a lot of physical and mental pain because that is what he owed them. To give a soldier a fair chance at survival, like, the training needs to be as brutal, if not possibly more brutal, than the actual battlefield. Otherwise, like, if you can't make it through basic training, you're not going to make it through war. And you need sergeants like Sergeant Zim to make training brutal enough that a soldier can actually conduct himself with honor in battle. There's a saying that you don't rise to the occasion, you fall to your training. And Sergeant Zim was just providing good quality training. And good quality training does not look fun. It's not meant to be fun. If a soldier folds in training, he's sure as hell going to fold in combat. So blood, pain, and broken bones are a part of training for the mobile infantry in the book as well as the movie. Now, like, actually look at the US Army. If you look into Army Ranger School or Special Forces selection, people die. Like, even Navy SEALs like Buds, right? People die. Despite this, brave young men will sign up every day to be a part of it. So Sergeant Zim takes no pleasure in the pain that he inflicts. There's a scene actually where Rico gets 10 lashes in public because like, he goofed up and had this kid remove the ACH in training and he gets shot, right? Like, we already discussed this. So when this happened, Zim gives Rico a leather strap to bite on and with compassion says,
"Bite down on this, son. It helps. I know."
What does this mean? It means that Sergeant Zim well, he himself got his lashes when he was younger and he was a private. Wouldn't you want a mentor like that who has been through the same difficulties as you and made it to the other side and still found success? I would, personally, I would like that. So Zim is offering a small tool to help with the pain, and he's admitting that he himself messed up in some way and got lashed in public and still became a drill sergeant, implying that he sees that same potential in Rico. This balances stern punishment with compassion. This kind of discipline and mentorship is what I wish the US Army basic training had more of. So here I will go into a story, a real life story which I saw happen with my real life as to what happens when drill sergeants are not harsh. So this happened, boys. So there's a guy in my basic training company, again, like, I don't know, 6 years ago, but more than that. And he was, I'm just gonna give him a fake name, right? Because I don't want to use real names. Let's just say his name was, let's just call him Hawkins. Name wasn't Hawkins, but whatever. Let's just call him Hawkins. So this kid, he was actually very talented. Like, he was strong, he was tall, he just had natural charisma and aura. Like, people would go to his bunk and talk to him, and he would just have this amazing draw. Very capable guy, very smart and cunning as well. But he had a very bad childhood. So he was a black kid in like the worst parts of Chicago. He never met his father. He had no good male role models in his life. His uncles were drug dealers. Potentially like just a really bad life, like really tough life. And so I feel for him. But either way, very capable guy. What does he use his capacity for? For everything wrong. So he starts smuggling contraband into the bays. He's bullying kids in the bays. Like, he's not a good soldier at all. He's bringing the whole platoon down. And if you know anything about basic training, it's like you do the smallest infraction and you get punished. You get your entire unit smoked. This is just how it goes. For example, like if your like boot laces aren't tied properly and a drill sergeant sees it, well, it's going to be a bad day for like you and your entire platoon. And that's how the discipline works. I don't like it. I don't like group punishment. Like, I don't like the idea one person makes a mistake but everybody gets punished. But that's beside the point. All this to say that the slightest infraction and you get smoked, you get punished, like the entire platoon gets punished, whatever. Now, Hawkins and he had made this, like, he built an actual like underground gang in the platoon and in the company. Like, basically other kids who had a similar background. No, I'm going to say it like it's a bunch of black kids who had difficult childhoods. They came together and they made this like gang network in the company, like crazy. Like that should not be happening in the army. Like, that should not be happening in the army. But it did happen. And eventually they got caught stealing. They got stealing thousands of dollars of military property. So we're like, wow, like these guys are screwed. They're fucked. Like, we get screwed for the smallest thing, and these guys stole government property. Like, surely they're going to get kicked out. Like, they're going to have a dishonorable discharge. Like, this is going to be really bad for them. But you know what happened? Nothing happened. And nothing happened because the drill sergeants were really afraid to single out, again, I'm going to say it, they were afraid to single out the black recruits, the black trainees, and punish them because, well, there's this policy, this stupid policy in the army, EO, it's called EO. So basically, if you single out anybody for their race, then you get punished. Now, of course, this wasn't a race-based thing. Like, they were getting singled out for the crime that they committed, not their race. But the drill sergeants were still afraid to do it because EO committee might not see it that way. And if they see it in a different way, they saw, like, it's completely up to them. It's not it's guilty until proven innocent kind of system. So if the EO committee decided that the drill sergeants were being racist, then their entire career is just like washed away. Like, none of their service up to this point would matter if the EO committees thought that they were being racist. And so they couldn't really punish these kids. Now, where am I going with the story? So they couldn't punish these kids. Like, the entire platoon suffered as a result. Like, everybody hated training. Like, it was stupid. It was unjust. And I was very demoralized seeing how if you were a certain type of person, then you would get away with anything. If you're a different kind of person, then like even the smallest infractions would get you punished. I hated it. But either way, years later, that this guy, this Hawkins guy, I'm just going to call him Hawkins, he is in jail because he committed a more serious crime. I'm not going to say what it is, but he's in jail because he committed a more serious crime. If the drill sergeants did their job and enforced rigorous discipline when an infraction was committed, then they would have probably saved this guy. Like, this guy didn't have any male role models worth a scrap, and he joined the army, I think, for the right reasons. He joined the army to become a better man. And the drill sergeant's job is to make him a better man through whatever means necessary. And they couldn't do it because of the policies enforced upon them. And so this guy, once he got through basic training, harmed somebody else, and in so doing went to jail. All this because the US Army didn't have the courage of conviction required to give punishment when it's deserved. Real. So punishment and violence doesn't always have to be bad. There is a certain way that you can administer it without taking any pleasure in it that actually changes a trainee's life for the better. Either way, coming back, all this to say that administrative punishment, as it is defined in the book, which is physical pain, can be a good thing if administered in the right way, the right time, for the right reasons. True, right? So that's that. I still feel bad for the guy. Dude, this guy, he was such a stud. Like, he was so strong, so fast, so smart. He could have been an amazing soldier. Like, this guy Hawkins, right? I really like the essence of him. I like he had aura. Like, people wanted to follow him so badly. It just didn't happen because he just never had a chance. And now he's in jail, and he has effectively he's ruined his life. So it is what it is, right? So all this to say, Starship Troopers is not a pro-violent movie. The Terran Federation attacks the bugs because the bugs flatten Buenos Aires. And in the basic training sequence, the drill sergeant Zim does use violence upon a trainee, but for a specific reason, to teach a certain lesson. So the violence is never justified onto itself. Violence is justified because of the overall effect that it has. Violence is justified for self-defense, obviously, in the case of humans attacking the bug planet, but also violence is justified as a correctional means to help a young trainee actually get better. Now, the big question: is this an anti-democracy movie? I think leftists hate this movie because not only does it attack the idea that not all people should vote, it actually downplays the power of the franchise. Franchise just means the right to vote. The power of the vote as well. So this is a heresy. Like, this is what leftists hate the most. So in the book, Ratchik says democracy failed because people are led to believe that they could simply vote for whatever they wanted and get it without toil, without sweat, without tears, and nothing of value is free. So actually, yes, the movie and the book is an attack on democracy, but not all democracy, but specifically mass democracy. So in the Starship universe, it is a democracy because people still vote. It's just not a mass democracy because not everybody votes. Only a selective group based on merit are able to vote in the Starship Troopers Terran Federation. So here's the problems with mass democracy according to Heinlein. So first, mass democracy. Like, to be clear, what's a mass democracy? Mass democracy simply means that everybody has a right to vote. So the United States would be example because as soon as you cross the age, the voting age, like regardless of whether you've earned it or not, you just are given the right to vote for free. So that's a mass democracy. The thing is, Heinlein says, resources are scarce. A politician who promises everybody that they're going to get free healthcare, food, homes, whatever, might win, but in so doing, he is going to crash the economy for future generations. So the thing is, stuff isn't free, but a politician could easily promise free stuff and win. In other words, mass democracy is the tyranny of the weak over the strong. Mass democracy is the tyranny of the lazy and incompetent over the hard worker and the talented. Democracy takes from the producers to give to the consumers. That is Heinlein's problem with democracy. Like, basically your taxes are so high because there's an entire class of welfare takers who don't carry their fair share. Mass democracy makes this possible because they have the same voting power as you do. The whole bloated structure of mass democracy exists for one purpose, is to spread out responsibility so widely that it becomes impossible to point fingers at anybody. This way, those who are actually in power can have all the power without the responsibility. There's a saying that the purpose of a system is what it does. So instead of looking at what mass democracy claims to do, we should look at what it really does. And I'll do even a real example to point this home. Look at this. The US is the only country, it's actually the only country which has strong protections for its citizens to have the ability to bear arms, so like to own guns, in other words. No other country does this. And even in the United States, half the population wants to get rid of this. And it's always the weak, like real talk. Who are the people? What kind of person is it in the United States who wants to get rid of the ability to buy a firearm? It's mostly women and weak men who want to get rid of the guns. Why? Because they don't know how to use it. They don't think they can use it. So they want everybody to get rid of it. So, actually think about how important this is. The entire freedoms of the United States, the fundamentals of freedom for the United States people rests upon the Second Amendment. And people are actively trying to get rid of it. How inane. So look at this observation. The people who are mentally or physically unwilling to use firearms are the most likely to be anti-firearms. This is important. So these people have no teeth, and they want to do everything in their power to pull away your teeth. That's what this is. So they're acting against their best interests. They think that by taking away your guns, that there would be no more gun violence. This is preposterous, because the criminal gangs and foreign elements will always be able to procure the firearms. So in other words, these people are neutering their last line of defense. And this is all to make this key point that the masses are not rational. They vote for their own self-destruction through ignorance, or just fear, or willful blindness. Giving the weak decision-making cannot be a stable system. This is why there needs to be a selection mechanism. A selection mechanism that Heinlein proposes is difficult and rigorous military service. Basically, let's simplify this. What Heinlein is saying is that democracy is good, but democracy should not freely give the vote. There should be a test. And Heinlein says that this test should be voluntary military service. So if you volunteer for military service and you actually get through the training, then you have earned the right to vote. And if you don't do this, then you didn't earn the right to vote, and therefore you don't vote. Now, here's the key thing. The Heinlein's test is not based on an immutable characteristic. It's based on action. It's based on your choice. So you could be a man, a woman, short, tall, any race, any ethnicity, speak any language that you want, or whatever, whatever IQ, whatever you want. You can still choose to join the military and serve your term and earn the right to vote. So it really is a selection mechanism to see who cares. If you actually care enough about society and the government, then serve your term, earn the right. And if you don't, then shut up, don't participate. That's how the Terran Federation works. That's the difference between a mass democracy and a limited democracy. And Heinlein says in no uncertain terms that limited democracy is far superior to mass democracy. Now, there's some questions that you might ask. Well, what about people who are handicapped by injury, or they have a birth defect? And the book actually, they explain this. Any man or woman who wants to earn the citizenship will be given the opportunity to do so. And basically what the book says is, let's say somebody comes in to the recruiter's office and they're already in a wheelchair. How can the military take somebody on who's already in a wheelchair? And the answer is, Terran Federation, they will just give you some other arduous task. So everybody in the Terran Federation does have the ability to go into the recruiter's office and say, hey, I want to earn the right to be a citizen. And if you're able-bodied, you could be put into the regular military. And if you're not of able body, then you'll be given some other arduous task. It could be literally anything. They'll basically come up with something which is as hard and challenging and risky as joining the military to suit your level of ability. The only people in the Terran Federation who are not eligible for citizenship are those who are mentally unfit to understand the oath of enlistment. If you want to be a citizen, then you can be a citizen, you just got to pay the cost. And in mass democracy, there is no cost to pay, which is what Heinlein hates about it. If you have skin in the game, you play. If you don't have skin in the game, you don't play. So Starship Troopers is not anti-democracy, but it is anti-mass democracy. And I'll close out this section with a personal note. So what are my beliefs, right? Here's what I'll say. I love the United States. I really do love the United States. But I think that the level of incompetence and corruption and negligence are turning this great nation into a slave to foreign interests. I despise this. And I can speak on hours about how the people of the United States have been betrayed by their leadership. I can tell you about how the taxpayer is bled dry by the bureaucracy to fuel their vote banks. I can tell you how the Federal Reserve was created specifically to increase taxes without the people realizing that their taxes are increasing. I can tell you about the Patriot Act. I can tell you about the way immigration laws are subverted by a certain group of people to ensure that they never lose again, basically. So slowly but surely, like all democracies of the past, the United States is turning into a tyranny. But this time it's going to be much worse than any past tyranny. And here's the reason why. We actually have the technology now to have a forever state. Different concept than what we started the video out with, but I think this is important, so I will tell you. Here's the deal, right? In the past, there have been many tyrants. Tyranny is the norm. When we think of tyrant or dictator, we think Hitler, we think Mussolini, we think Chairman Mao, we think Pol Pot, whatever, right? But really, tyranny is the norm, right? We can go all the way back to the pharaohs of Egypt, who were literally worshipped as gods. The difference now is that all these tyrants of the past, they wanted absolute control over their citizens. But there's a lot of difference between wanting something and actually having it. So even Hitler, even Stalin, they didn't actually have complete control over their citizens because they just didn't have the technology. Like they wanted to surveil everybody at all times, but they couldn't do it because they didn't have cameras. Like they had cameras, but they didn't have like micro cameras and drones and like the facial recognition technology and all this stuff. Like look at China, right? Like you cannot step out your doors without being facially recognized by their AI system. So what am I trying to say here? Let me condense my thoughts. It's this: like if Hitler / Stalin / Mao was alive today and had the same government control, like it would actually not be possible to overthrow them. Because for any resistance network to develop, well, you have to have some ability to coordinate your actions with others. But with the technology that we have today, imagine an actual modern AI-enabled technology surveillance system, like with cameras all over the place. Like you couldn't organize. Like even if you wanted to have like be a part of a rebellion, right? The second you meet another person who has the same thought and you start to coordinate, the government will catch you and put a stop to it. So you could actually, like for the first time in history, you can actually have a tyranny which is everlasting. This thought should terrorize you. Let's bring this back. What's the connection between all this and Starship Troopers? The connection is basically this. In a mass democracy, responsibility is so spread thin that nobody feels responsible, and so a small cabal can basically take control of the government and enforce any kind of surveillance system that they want. Starship Troopers basically makes the case that government should not be a mass democracy, but rather should be a limited democracy, and that limited 1%, like that 1%, top 1% who serve in the military should be the ones to cast votes to make the decisions that allow the government to function. The hypothesis here, and I think it is a good hypothesis, is that the top 1% of freedom-loving people will be more resistant to tyranny than the average masses would be. And I'll give you I'll give you an example to like really drive this home. So I did CPR, right? CPR class many years ago. And this was when I was trying to be a fitness instructor and a yoga instructor. I did succeed in that. So in CPR class, they teach you that before you get down and performing CPR, you need to point at one specific person and be like, hey, you, call 911 now. And you never say, hey, somebody call 911. You always say, you call 911 now. And the reason for this is because you've given responsibility to a specific person and they will actually take action. If you start performing CPR and you just say, somebody call 911, then nobody does it because like everybody's like, well, somebody else is going to do it. So this principle, it is only when responsibility and power are handed to one person that, or not like a specific group or one person, that actions take place. If you just say everybody, like if you say somebody do it, then nobody does it. And so it is with democracy as a whole. When you have a mass democracy, it's the same situation as saying, well, somebody take care of the economy, like somebody take care of the nation, please. that never works. Instead, you need to have a 1% elite, like, who have actually earned the right to cast votes to make the electoral decisions. That's Heinlein's point, basically. All this to say that democracy should be merit-based and not be freely given. That's like the one sentence explanation for all that we've discussed. Now, let's talk about the cultural impact, the fun stuff. So it was actually Heinlein who pioneered the idea of power armor. The Space Marines of 40K and the Warriors of Halo actually come from this idea. The book, okay, so you know how I said the book and the movie are very different? The book version of the mobile infantry, that's a very different beast from the movie version of the mobile infantry. The movie version of the mobile infantry looks kind of like the modern, like it looks like any normal army really. It's a bunch of guys with some plate armor and have big ass rifles. Like that's kind of what the military looks like right now. But the book mobile infantry, that's different. Book mobile infantry is far closer to like Space Marines in 40K. They don't get flown down from the spaceship in a spacecraft. They do drop pod assault like the Space Marines do. So and the way the book describes the mobile infantry is that a single mobile infantry trooper could take down 12 tanks easily. So the mobile infantry of the books is like is a huge power armored Hulk, and like 12 mobile infantrymen is like a whole army basically. So mobile infantry of the book is amazing, like super cool. They have jump packs, like the Space Marine jump packs, like I know the Raven Guard, the Blood Angels would have. That's the kind of jump packs which the mobile infantry in the books have. The mobile infantry in the books far more awesome than the mobile infantry of the movie. In the movie, Carl, like the general guy, right? He can control animals and he can even communicate telepathically. And that's the same concept of a psyker in Warhammer 40k. Now, if you want a metaphysics of Warhammer 40k, just say so in the comments. That would be a fun one to make. Now, the movie's music deserves a section unto itself. It is triumphant, it's bold, and it's uplifting. And it felt kind of familiar to me because the last video I made was about Conan the Barbarian, which you should absolutely, like, you should watch that video next. Which that's one of my favorite videos that I've ever made. That and the Barbie movie video are some of my best videos in my opinion. So you should watch that next. I'll link to it in the description, whatever. And in that video, I talk about Basil Polidorus, the composer who worked for 1 year to produce a score for Conan the Barbarian, which is all of 60 minutes long. Imagine that. You worked for a year to produce 1 hour of content. That's what it took, and that's why the Conan the Barbarian soundtrack is legendary. And I didn't know this when I watched Starship Troopers, but it was actually Basil Polidorus who made the soundtrack for Starship Troopers as well. And when I learned that, I was like, I get it. I get it. Of course it's the same person. This is somebody who, like, he puts so much into the music, and the music conveys so much emotion, and you'll, like, if you watch the movie, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And cool thing is, Basil Polidorus' daughter is in the film. So in the opening sequence, like the prom sequence where Rico talks with Ratchek and Xander and Carmen are talking, the girl who's on stage singing the song, that's Basil Polidorus' daughter. So cool little Easter egg. Nobody knows this. The lesson I'm taking away from this is basically this, that our hard work, our craft has meaning. And if we do the work to produce things of beauty, then we are making the suffering of life not just worth it, but feel like a bargain. So everybody suffers. So let's take that and put it towards things which endure. Music, art, books, ideas. This is what makes life amazing and fun. Like what I'm doing right now. I'm making something which I think is cool. I hope that you also think it's cool. And that makes life worth it to me. Now let's bring all this back to you. Maybe you learned something new in this video. I hope you did. Maybe your political opinions were influenced. But at the end of the day, this video was not about politics as such, it was about power. Now the question is, how does one accrue power? Well, step 1 is to have power over yourself. If you are not satisfied with your progress over the year so far, you have a chance to fix it. You have 2 months to fix it. This is your reminder to go to the pinned comment below, use that link and sign up for the free goal setting workshop. I will see you there and I will guide you. I'll show you how to set up your goals. I'll show you how to get mental clarity and win the rest of the year. See you there.